Welcome to the 8-Minute Rule podcast, where actual physical therapists share clinical pearls designed to create conversation around what's getting results in the clinic. No fluff, no Medicare stopwatch, only quality content. Welcome back to the 8-Minute Rule, and we've got Mark and Luke. No Drew here today. I apologize. I believe he'll be back next week with us though. So welcome, guys. We are going to tackle Achilles tendinopathy today. So I'm excited to hear what you guys are thinking on that. But we have an icebreaker question that we need to get to first. So, Mark Powell, what song is playing on your radio in the car right now as you came into work?
I love this answer, and so is my clinic. I actually don't listen to music in the car, so it is silent on my commute. And whenever I'm in the car, I do not have music going.
Fair enough. That's a fun answer there. Now, I mean, if it was to be some music, who would it be?
All right. Um, man, I like some Avicii, or maybe some Linkin Park.
Or a little headbanger?
Yeah, I like a little variety. Maybe throw in some Ti in there too.
There you go. There you go. Thought that was before your time, but hey, you may trust the classics there.
I appreciate that, I think.
All right, so without further ado, Achilles tendinopathy. So guys, let's kind of start off. Lucas, what type of patients are you seeing that are struggling with Achilles tendinopathy in your clinic?
In my clinic, my population is not as active. So that's a population that usually is going to go on a trip, do a new activity. Summer is coming, they haven't done anything in 6 months, and they decided to go to a walk on the beach. Or they're going to travel to Europe, or wherever, Machu Picchu, and do a lot of walking. And they're going to get that extra strain on an ankle that is not really functional, hasn't been functional in quite a while, meaning it's stiff. There's degenerative joint signs and symptoms. I don't want to say disease because, disease needs a little bit more symptom. And after they do the activity, they develop this pain, which takes them a week or two, a month to get to the doctor, which takes a week or two, a month to get to physical therapy. When you get to me, it's a chronic tendinopathy, really.
I would say,
Yeah, and Mark, I was going to ask you, for you, obviously more athletic population typically. What does it look like in your clinic?
yeah, so the flip side of that is generally someone that is more active. Usually it's due to a significant change in activity, which is consistent with what Lucas was talking about, but we're talking about a significant increase in volume. So if they go up too much in their running volume, or all of us, they're typically a straight ahead runner, and then all of a sudden they switch surfaces and now they're doing trails, or maybe they're trying to go out and play basketball. So they're generally active, but they're not necessarily trained for the activity level or type that they're doing. Um, and so that's when I will most often see those folks. And to Lucas's point, even in the active population, oftentimes it becomes chronic because people try to run through stuff, or just in general, people try to put things off or modify on their own to try to self-treat. And by the time they get to someone that knows how to actually treat it, it's already been a long time.
Which obviously changes a little bit of the dynamics of how you're going to treat. But uh, kind of next, we'll just quickly look at the assessment here. So, Lucas, what are you going to find as you're evaluating this patient? What are they typically going to show from an assessment standpoint?
Joint mobility issues, which indirectly will lead to my manual therapy there, and that's the only time I'm going to put the manual therapy in these patients. Muscle imbalances, usually a quadriceps that is underused, underdeveloped, underfunctional, quad glute. So the extensor mechanism is faulty, and that will lead to my invariably to my plan of care. And this is, I want to guesstimate now, but about 75-80% of my patients.
What joint specifically are you most focused on?
Taylor crural, Taylor crural, rear foot, mid rear foot.
And Mark, you seeing pretty similar?
Yeah, a lot of times it's the muscle imbalances, both locally as well as up the chain, like Lucas said, the quads and the glutes. I often will see some localized, more muscle tenderness from one, like gastroc compared to the other. A lot of times they'll have like those trigger points in those areas. And it's kind of a chicken or egg. Was it that started the tendon issue, or was it the tendon that started the muscular issues in that local muscle? But otherwise, pretty consistent with what Lucas was saying there. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I spent a lot of time talking to patients about just how powerful the moment that the calf produces force, especially for running, um, as compared
Okay,
to walking. But yes, what I was going to ask real quick was from you guys' standpoint. Do you feel like it tends to be more of the calf is just not strong enough to do what they're wanting to do? Or there's more the type of motion and the type of power versus strength, and kind of working in that way. What do you guys see there?
I'm gonna diverge just a little bit from your question and leave that to Mark. I think Mark can see more of that than I do. I find it hard to find a calf weakness. Let's start with that. Like calf weakness, upper trap weakness, you really gotta check yourself out if you're saying something like that. It's even if it's like inhibition, right? With that being said, I'm gonna circle back what I was going to say. Like I have a lot of patients on the 50s, 60s that develop a knee osteoarthritis, and that change of activity, that specific activity, that weekend that something happened, trigger this situation. And focusing solely on that quad, on the excuse me, on that triceps, on the Achilles tendon, which needs to be done as the clinical practice guideline says as much, but turning your head away from that arthritic knee, that low chronic low back pain, will just lead to inefficient rehabilitation program.
Yeah, they call it the three P's: the precipitating, predisposing, and perpetuating factors. So, like Lucas was saying, looking at those other things, if you don't address their knee or their back, then the likelihood of recurrence, even if you do everything perfect in the Achilles, the likelihood of recurrence or prolonged episode of care is going to be much higher.
Absolutely. So yeah, I'm treating the whole system really important, and obviously we don't want these things to come back. So yeah, I appreciate the thoughts there. Uh, so when we're looking at treatment here, what are some pearls? Obviously, everybody's on here because they want to be able to hear things you guys are doing to getting these patients better. And we talked about kind of differentiating mid portion versus insertional. That is important. There's differences even in reference to CPGs. So, Lucas, what are some pearls that you're seeing in essence for both of those? It could be kind of similar, but in both of those.
So excluding that knee, hip, low back part, I invariably start with isometric. Protocol is 45 seconds on, 45 seconds off, 8 times every day, which the patient needs to understand is going to develop quite a bit of soreness in the beginning, and then that's going to eventually wear itself out. If needed, soft tissue mobilization, more specifically dry needling of soleus gastrocnemius. And if you really want to go that shotgun, I would not hesitate in doing some dorsiflexion mobilization of the talocrural joint, as well as rear foot mobilization, mid foot mobilization. There.
Yeah. As far as on my end, I'll talk a little bit about what not to do almost. So, um, you know, going through PT school and you talk to patients, you talk to other providers, then they're like, "Oh, stretch the Achilles, stretch it out," and they're just getting after it. and really what they're doing is just perpetuating their symptoms. Really, it's what it needs is load, and then gradually increasing load into dorsiflexion. But oftentimes to start out, I don't stretch these folks. I'll tell them like, hey, if we find, when we're pain is down and you're getting back and doing things, if we find a range of motion deficit, then yeah, we'll stretch, we'll do whatever we need to do. But I can't tell you, you know, how many times I haven't needed to do that because there really wasn't a motion deficit there. And then the other thing that people often will forget or neglect is the soleus, and loading up the soleus specifically. Yeah, it's great to do your straight-legged calf raises, and that's necessary. But doing some things with the knee bent, getting into some heavy plantar flexion there as well, to target more soleus is going to definitely be a necessity.
Yeah, good stuff there. I appreciate the concept of not stretching. I know there's been plenty of times early in my career that I did that poorly and just made things angry. And so it's good to recognize from the front end, because that's going to be the conventional thought. The Dr. Google's going to tell them that, maybe the podiatrist, maybe some other people are, hey, just stretch it out, and then do calf raises. And next thing you know, that Achilles is just staying ticked off. So I think it's been interesting because that's I don't know if you guys have seen this, but for me, mid portion versus insertional, where I've tended to find the biggest setbacks is trying to load, especially the insertional, too much early on. They really did not seem to like that as much, and so there have been times where I had to pull back and really be able to get that patient out of pain first. But I think as both of you guys talked about, education is a key component here. Probably is going to get a little worse before it gets better, but still got to get enough recovery as well too to be able to tolerate the loading. So, um, all good thoughts there. Any other
Having the
final clinical pearls you guys want to share?
Well, as
Don't
far as
forget about
education
our last
goes,
episode when we talk about dosing.
Those-
yeah.
Absolutely.
But as far as education goes, having the somewhat uncomfortable conversation with patients to tell them that, sometimes tendon pain or tendinopathies last 6 to 9 months. And being able to say, like, hey, I'm not going to need to see you for that length of time, but, to get back to where you want to be and where you need to be, this is a long process and you have to stick with it.
Yeah, and how much of that is going to be key? I mean, I know you guys got orthopedics right next door to you, but there's going to probably have to be a pretty good balance of provider communication there. And there's a lot of people aren't too excited about that timeline when you tell them it's going to take 6 to 9 months. So, being able to have either primary care, ortho, somebody else on the team as well too, and make sure the patient knows you guys are talking and communicating, because that is what the literature shows. And if the ortho is not recognizing that, then it's good to have that literature available to be able to communicate it in a good realm. I mean, we're not trying to burn bridges here, but we need to make sure facts exist, and if they do, people get better. I think that's the cool thing and what everybody wants to do. So, all right, appreciate it, guys. Good stuff. Our time is out here, so we will leave for the day. You guys have an awesome week. All right.
Thank you,
Yeah.
boss.